Hey, what's going on, church family? It's Sean Shetler here, and I wanted to share about meditation and dream slash vision slash hearing from God. So, this was in the month of November of 2024. I was meditating on things I had been studying in seminary and some of the things that were in my missions and evangelism class, and I heard the Holy Spirit tell me to take up and read Colossians chapter 1 verses 15 through 18. So I'll go ahead and read from the NRSV. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. For in him all things in heaven and on earth were created, things visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or powers. All things have been created through him and for him. And he himself is before all things, and in him all things hold together. He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he might come to have first place in everything. Analysis. In Colossians 1:15 through 18, Paul emphasizes the preeminence of Christ in all things: creation, existence, and the church. These verses highlight the cosmic role of Jesus, not just as Savior of humanity, but as the central figure in the universe, holding all things together. Let's break down each verse. Verse 15. He is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of all creation. Christ is the visible manifestation of God, revealing God's nature and character to humanity. The term firstborn refers not to a temporal birth, but to preeminence, indicating that Christ holds the highest rank over all of creation. He is the ultimate expression of God's glory and nature. Hebrews 1:3. Verse 16. For in him all things in heaven and on earth were created, things visible and invisible. All things have been created through him and for him. This verse underscores Christ's role in creation. Not only did Christ create all things, but everything exists for him, meaning that creation finds its purpose in him. This includes everything from the physical universe to spiritual realities, thrones, dominions, rulers, and powers, affirming the scope of Christ's authority over all creation. Verse 17. He himself is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Christ existed before all of creation, John 1 and 1 through 3, and sustains the universe. This reveals Christ's active involvement in maintaining the order of the cosmos. The universe is not a machine left to run on its own. It's not a set it and forget it. It is sustained by Christ's power. Verse 18. He is the head of the body, the church. He is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he might come to have first place in everything. Christ is the head of the church, signifying his leadership, authority, and foundational role in the life of believers. As the firstborn from the dead, Christ's resurrection signifies the first fruits of the new creation, where believers will also be resurrected in him. This affirms his ultimate authority and preeminence in both the church and in all of creation. Commentary and application to the church today. Christ as the foundation of the church. Colossians 1:18 affirms that Christ is the head of the church. This is a critical reminder to the church today. Christ must be central in all aspects of church life. Too often, the church can be distracted by trends, personalities, influencers, worldly influencers. And this passage calls the church but to focus on Christ, who is the source of life and unity for believers. Christ's role as the head emphasizes that the church's purpose is not self-serving or self-promotion, but to serve Christ and his mission in the world. Christ is the source of unity and sustainability. Colossians 1:17 reminds us that in him all things hold together. In a world filled with division, confusion, and disarray and chaos, the church is called to recognize that true unity and sustainability come only through Christ. He is the unifying force in the church. He holds it all together. As members of the church, we are called to be united in him, embracing the peace that comes from his supremacy over all things. Point number 3, Christ as the creator and sustainer of all. Colossians 1:16 and 17 emphasize Christ's role in creation and his ongoing sustaining power. This truth should shape how the church engages with the world today. If Christ created and sustains all things, then the church is called to care for creation and engage in the world with the understanding that everything is created through and for Christ. This perspective should shape our ethics, our social engagement, and our environmental responsibility. Point number 4, Christ's preeminence in everything. Colossians 1:18 reminds us that Christ must have first place in everything. This is a challenge to the church today, especially in a culture that often elevates other values, idols, or priorities. Football, Dallas Cowboys, Texas A&M, Texas Tech. Whether in worship, ministry, or personal lives, Christ must be central. The church must consistently ask, does our ministry, our message, and our life reflect Christ's preeminence? Is he truly the first in everything that we do? Point number 5, Christ's role in the resurrection and the new creation. As the firstborn from the dead, Christ's resurrection guarantees the future resurrection of all believers. The church is called to live in the light of this hope. This reality should transform the church's mission and outlook on suffering, death, and the future. We are not merely waiting for heaven, we are called to live in the hope of the new creation, where Christ's resurrection power brings life and renewal to all things. Colossians 1:15 through 18 paints a grand picture of Christ's supremacy over all of creation, the church, and all of life. For the church today, this passage is both a call to worship and a guide for living. Christ is the foundation of the church, the creator and the sustainer of all, and the ultimate goal of all things. The church must embrace Christ's preeminence in everything, living in unity and mission under his headship. By doing so, the church will more faithfully reflect the glory of God and fulfill its calling in the world today. Additionally, Colossians 1:15 through 18 is connected to Hebrews 13:8 and Proverbs 8:22 verse through 31, which further illuminates the eternal nature of Christ and his preeminence in creation and the ongoing work of God. Let's explore how these passages interrelate and connect and apply to our understanding of Christ's role in the church and in the universe. Colossians 1:15 through 18 and its connection to Hebrews 13:8. Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. This verse in Hebrews emphasizes the unchanging nature of Christ, while Colossians 1:15 through 18 reveals the cosmic role of Christ in creation and the church. Hebrews 13:8 underscores the eternal consistency of his character and divine authority. These two passages work together to highlight that Christ is not only preeminent in creation, but also eternal and unchanging, which is crucial for understanding his trustworthiness and his authority. Hebrews 13:8 serves as a reminder that the same Christ who was involved in the creation of the universe, as described in Colossians 1:16 and 17, is the same Christ who is active today in the church and in the lives of believers. This consistency provides comfort to the church, assuring believers that Christ's power and sovereignty are not temporary or subject to change. Christ's eternal nature means that his leadership in the church, his role as head, and his sustaining power over creation are not bound by time. The church can rely on the same Christ who existed before all things and who will continue to reign for eternity. His consistency is a foundation upon which the church can build its faith and mission. Colossians 1:15 through 18 and its connection to Proverbs 8:22 through 31. Proverbs 8:22 through 31 presents a poetic description of wisdom, which may interpret as a pre-incarnate manifestation of Christ. In these verses, wisdom is personified as being present with God at the creation of the world. Proverbs 8:22 through 23, the Lord created me at the beginning of his work, the first of his acts of long ago. Ages ago I was set up, at the first before the beginning of the earth. And Proverbs 8:30 through 31, then I was beside him like a master worker, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing before him always, rejoicing in his inhabited world and delighting in the human race. This passage from Proverbs is significant because it describes wisdom as being present at the creation of the world, actively participating in the formation of the earth. Many early Christian theologians and biblical scholars identify this wisdom as pre-incarnate Christ, especially when considered alongside Colossians 1:16, which says, "For in him all things in heaven and on earth were created." Colossians 1:16 emphasizes that all things were created through Christ and for Christ. This is closely related to Proverbs 8:22 through 31, where wisdom, often understood as reference to Christ in Christian theology, is present at the creation and delights in the world God is forming. Christ is not only the creator, but also the one who delights in his creation, and as Proverbs 8:31 notes, rejoices in the human race. Proverbs 8:30 through 31 suggests that Christ, as a personified wisdom of God, had a deep relationship with the Father in creation, and this relationship is foundational to the understanding of Christ's role in sustaining the universe. In Colossians 1:17, we see that in him all things hold together, the glue, which connects directly to the idea that Christ, as the wisdom and power of God, actively sustains and maintains the order of creation. Theological implications and application to the church today. These passages together reveal that Christ is eternal, unchanging, and central to all of creation, as well as the head of the church. The church today can find comfort in the fact that the same Christ who was involved in the creation of the world is still at work in the church and in believers' lives. His eternal nature, and as described in Hebrews 13:8, assures the church that his leadership and sustaining power are unshakable. Christ as the creator and sustainer. The link or connection between Colossians 1:16 through 17 and Proverbs 8:22 through 31 emphasize Christ's role as the creator and sustainer of the universe. This should encourage the church to view all of creation with reverence and awe, recognizing that Christ is the origin and purpose of all things. Believers are called to live in harmony with God's creation, understanding that everything is made through and for Christ. This also challenges the church to care for the environment and to engage in culture and society with the understanding that all things ultimately belong to Christ. Christ's eternal nature and the church's mission. Hebrews 13:8 reassures believers that Christ is constant, providing a firm foundation for the church's mission. In a world that is constantly changing, the church can find stability and confidence in the eternal Christ. The church's mission remains rooted in the same eternal truths, regardless of the changing circumstances of the world. Christ's role as the head of the church. The understanding of Christ as both the creator and the head of the church, as stated in Colossians 1:18, highlights that the church's dependence on him for guidance, strength, and unity. The church today is called to submit to Christ's authority, recognizing that he is not only the foundation of creation, but also the sustainer, the glue, and the leader of the body of believers. This requires the church to prioritize Christ in all aspects of life and ministry, acknowledging that he holds the first place in everything. The connection between Colossians 1:15 through 18, Hebrews 13:8, and Proverbs 8:22 through 31 deepens our understanding of Christ's eternal, unchanging nature and his central role in both creation and the church. Christ is the creator, the sustainer, and the head of the church. These truths provide the church today with a strong foundation for faith, unity, and mission, urging believers to live in awe of Christ's preeminence and to follow him as the ultimate source of life and purpose. I hope this message has been a blessing. I thank you for letting me share this with you today.